From San Diego, California, this is the Frug Life Podcast, the show that teaches you how to save, invest, and earn money. Here's the host, Mr. Frugal himself, Ricky Hirsch.
Welcome to the Frug Life. As you probably remember, I did a review of the book Think and Grow Rich, which I didn't love. So today I wanted to talk about the book You Were Born Rich by Bob Proctor, and specifically just chapter 1 because I have a lot to say. Now, Bob Proctor in his book thinks of himself as a successor to Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill is the author of Think and Grow Rich. The prologue of the book reads, "Remember, Bob Proctor is a direct link to the modern science of success, stretching back to Andrew Carnegie, the great financier and philanthropist. Carnegie's secrets inspired and enthused Napoleon Hill, whose book Think and Grow Rich in turn inspired a whole genre of success philosophy books that now take up large sections of modern bookstores. Napoleon Hill in turn passed the baton to Earl Nightingale, who has since placed it in Bob Proctor's capable hands." And I guess I should take a moment to pause and say that, Bob Proctor also passed away just a year or two ago. So I guess that statement isn't accurate. And to fans of Bob Proctor, I must be a massive jerk right now, but that's okay. So I think the premise of Proctor's book is simple enough, which is all the tools you need for success are in your mind. You simply need to attract what you want in life to you. And I've written and said before, I think this line of thinking can not only be untrue, but dangerous. The circumstances of your birth carry huge implications for your life. Now, what I wanted to say is that the biggest predictor of your success could be the success of your parents. And I actually don't have a source for that. But I do know anecdotally, according to my recollection, the best way to get to the upper class is simply to be born into it. If you're born lower class, the odds of moving to upper class are low. Now, I couldn't find a source online that said that. So instead what I found was this chart from weforum.org, and I'll link it in the show notes. And this chart is showing that each generation is a little worse off than the generation before it. For people born before the 1940s, pretty much across the board, 90% of them were higher income than their parents, across all income percentiles. Now, if we look at the children born in 1980, if their parents were in the lowest income earning percentile, 80% of them made more money. But this all tapers off. So if their parents were in the higher earning percentile, the 80th percentile, only 40% of them make more. And I guess that's really hard to see in this podcast, so maybe look at my show notes. So the heart of what I'm saying is the middle class is shrinking a bit, I think. And also what I'm trying to assert here is that your earnings relative to your parents isn't random, really, I think. I think there's a clear correlation, especially in times past. If your parents made a lot of money, you were very likely to make that much money and more. And to these points I've made, I think Bob Proctor would respond, in an upper class household, the principles of his book are taught, while in a lower class household, they're not. And I don't think that's really the case. Likewise, I think Proctor, when shown this evidence or this data, would say that there's some kind of generational weakness, that this great secret, as he likes to refer to it, is not being passed on. And I don't think that's really true either. I think there's a simpler and more logical explanation. And it's, like I said, simple. The circumstances of your birth are important. There's a TEDx type speech where the speaker is a well-to-do man, and he says the country of his birth was the difference between him becoming a multimillionaire as he is and being shoeless and selling fruit by the side of the road. I really wish I could have found the source for that. I Googled quite a bit and I couldn't find it. Now, I do think Proctor has a point, though. If you say everything is up to the circumstances of your birth and you can't be helped, well, that extreme isn't true either. Some people can and do buck the trend. Some people do ascend social classes. It is possible. And I think some of the ideas in the book could help you with that. But to say everything depends on your mindset, I think that's disingenuous and honestly a bit dangerous. Proctor also discusses that money must be kept in circulation. He gives an example that keeping money, change in a jar, is worthless, and that when he gives the money to his son and he spends it, it then has value. Specifically, he says his son was going to spend it on golf lessons. And this is the kind of thinking a fake guru wants you to think. How he subtly drops the hint, you should spend your money on courses. Just holding on to your money, that does you no good. You just need to spend it all. You need to better yourself with education, and not traditional education, mind you. At least that's my take on it, and it's all a little bit insidious, if you ask me. Now, you could boil down Proctor's position to saying that leaving money in literal cash in your house is a waste. And yeah, a bank is generally better. But I want you to listen to this quote. The point I want you to notice, however, is that while the cup is being filled, the money in it has absolutely no value whatsoever. It just sits there serving no useful function and not even drawing any interest. And then I also want you to hear this quote. In a later chapter, you'll be given a better explanation of the paradox of why we attract unto our lives the very things we least desire. But for now, suffice it to say, worrying about money is always extremely counterproductive. The principle holds true, even if you rationalize your worry with the old platitude that you are just saving for a rainy day. Now, I actually think having some cash in hand for rainy days is a good idea. Like, what happens if you can't go to the bank and you literally need cash? Well, then you're out of luck. I'm certainly not advocating that you keep lots of money out of the bank, but I think you should have enough cash to deal with a few basic things. Having a little bit of money just sitting around in your house isn't the end of the world. And having a little bit of money for a rainy day isn't the end of the world. Now, to Proctor's comment that worrying about things makes them happen, I'm not sure I agree with that either. In fact, being ignorant of potential problems isn't a way to avoid them, right? If we are worried about something happening, we can take steps to prevent it from happening. It's not the worry that causes something to happen. I think that causal link doesn't exist. I think Bob Proctor is making something up here. And oftentimes, when we have worries, they are justified. So it's not the worrying that causes them to come true. It's that the worry was a valid worry. That's just my opinion, though. That all being said, I think the book does teach some good principles. Here's another quote. Money is a servant. Always remember, money is a servant. You are the master. Be very careful not to reverse that equation, because many people of high intelligence have already done so, to their great detriment. Unfortunately, many of those poor souls loved money and used people, which violated one of the most basic laws governing true financial success. You should always love people and use money, rather than the reverse. You should use money as something to invest, as a tool. And sure, perhaps you will invest some of it in education, but I mean in the literal sense, you should be using your money to make you more money, as all part of your plan for retirement. Now contrast this with this next quote I'm going to read. Mental money. Begin immediately to play a mental game with yourself. Get into the habit of visualizing yourself in the possession of great wealth. Think of some of the things you would do with that money, and then mentally start doing them. Since your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between actually doing something and visualizing yourself doing it, this exercise will quickly help you develop prosperity conscientiousness. Remember, it is an absolute law of your being that you must have something mentally before you ever have it physically. So is what Proctor's saying here true? I don't think so. The acquisition of money, specifically earning money by yourself, is a product of hard work, discipline, as well as other factors like education. I guess I'm trying to clarify. I do think hard work and discipline might not be enough at times. You can work really hard and still not make very much money. But I would say your work ethic and your skill set is way more important than any visualization exercise. And I just talked about earning your own money there. I think you can inherit money without doing any exercise of that kind at all. Now that being said, will doing this exercise hurt you? Probably not. So not too much harm in doing it, I suppose. I think this gets better, though, in the next paragraph. So understand that everyone talks to themselves mentally. In fact, some people even do it out loud. Therefore, whenever you are carrying on your private conversation with yourself, always talk about how good it feels to be wealthy. Congratulate yourself on becoming wealthy, and hear others congratulating you as well. You should realize that although this might appear to be a game you are playing, you are doing one of the wisest things you can possibly do. You are working from a higher to a lower potential. So I need to literally imagine others telling me, congratulations on being rich. This seems like malarkey to me. I don't think this is a required step on the path to wealth. In fact, I think it's a little indulgent. All right, this has gone on quite a while. I still have more material. Let's take a quick break and we will be right back. Just here in my garage, bought this new XLR microphone here. But do you know what I love even more than material things? Knowledge. And with Anchor, you can find and share knowledge. With Anchor, you can easily create and monetize a podcast. The billionaire Warren Buffett said, "The more you earn, the more you learn." Visit Anchor.fm and make your podcast today. Welcome back. Now, continuing on, Proctor continues and makes the assertion that just thinking about an empty bank account becomes a self-fulfilling cycle, which I think is a dubious claim. Just thinking about having no money will cause you not to have money? No, I don't think so. I think quite the opposite. If every time you are about to waste your money, you said to yourself, I have no money, therefore I can't spend it, you would have money because you didn't spend it. I do this myself. I say, I can't afford to eat out, or I can't afford this or that. Now, of course, that isn't entirely true, but there are many other things I'd rather spend my money on. I'm in a wealth accumulation phase of my life right now, so I'm earning as much as I can and try to cut my spending as much as possible. Now, I do like that Proctor is much more self-aware than Hill. He knows that this is absurd. In the next paragraph we read, you might very well be saying to yourself that this is an absurd argument. For if a bank account is empty, it's empty. It just isn't realistic to look at an empty bank account and be able to visualize great wealth. But I want you to know, this is the very kind of reasoning which perpetuates poverty and keeps poor people impoverished. Now, he doesn't really disprove my criticism, in my opinion. He just acknowledges it exists. And then he repeats this idea that you need to visualize something before it can physically happen. Now, if you took this to an extreme, you might say, I can't get mugged if I don't visualize it in advance. Or, as long as I suppress my negative thoughts and think positive ones, only good things will happen to me. Now, of course, that isn't true. You don't need to visualize something bad for it to happen to you. And likewise, I don't think you need to visualize good things either in order for them to happen to you. Here's another quote that I thought was interesting. This is what the great artist Vincent van Gogh meant when he was asked how he did such beautiful work. He said, I dream my painting, and then I paint my dream. In other words, he saw the picture in his mind first, and then he made a replica on canvas in oil of the original in his mind. In truth, there has never been an original Van Gogh sold. I think Van Gogh is such an interesting choice to quote in this regard. As you might know, Van Gogh had only one or two of his paintings sold in his lifetime. I think the story goes Van Gogh sold his artwork or gave his artwork to his brother to sell them, but his brother never actually sold the artwork. He just gave Van Gogh money, and only one or two of his paintings were actually sold. It was only after Van Gogh's death that he became famous. He died poor. So is he such a great example of seeing something and doing it in your mind and then manifesting it? Is he a good example of thinking and growing rich? Oops, wrong book. This is You Were Born Rich. So is Van Gogh a good example of seeing something in your mind and manifesting it? Well, no, I don't think so. If he did have this skill, wouldn't it transcend to money as well? So all that discussion was just the first chapter of the book. Well, the first chapter and introduction. So will I do a review of the rest of the book? Maybe. We'll have to see. You know, since the show is like monthly now and there's 10 chapters, that's like going to comprise the rest of the year. So we'll see about that. So why don't you share your thoughts with me as well? And maybe I'll even feature some of them on the show. You know, there's an option to send me a recording on Anchor, or you could just email me too. Do you think this is true? Do you think that the key to success is to visualize your success. You think the key to money is to visualize your money. Maybe I need to have more conversations in my mind. Congratulations on becoming wealthy, Mr. Frug. Congratulations. And I'll pat myself on the back. Oh, great work on becoming wealthy, Mr. Frug. Great work. Is that the key to wealth? I'll let you decide. Thanks for listening to today's episode. And as always, stay frugal.